We are going to talk about outreach, social media outreach, and how that can help you generate leads and ultimately take you to sales. And one of those things that can be time consuming, but we've got all kinds of tips for you to mitigate that. The other thing is, I think it can be very spammy if it's not done correctly. So think about it, the fact that people do business with people. And so you want to make them like you, and you can really alienate people right off the bat if you're not careful with how you do your outreach.
Yeah, because I think we've all received messages on LinkedIn or on Facebook that, they come across very ingenuine or disingenuous, is that the word? Or they're just trying to sell you something. Hey, I found you on Facebook. Want to buy my stuff?
Yes. Okay, so let's jump into this. Outreach, we're talking about sending people DMs on Instagram or connecting with them on LinkedIn and sending them a message. So these are different ways that you can connect with people. And like Jeannie said, you don't want to just be like, hey, buy my stuff. So some ways that you can think about taking care of outreach is to simply come up with a kind of concept you want to talk to them about. Like, hey, read their profile. Hey, Sally, I saw that you are a health and fitness coach. And, I'd love to connect with you. I'm always about building relationship with other coaches, because we're business coaches. So just something authentic and real. And then, once the connection is made, there's other things that you can do to continue to nurture that relationship. And so I think sometimes we spend, we have some messages that we write up to send out to people. We have some second messages. So if someone doesn't connect with them, we send them a second message. So we just kind of sat down and came up with a little strategy. But obviously, if someone's messaging us back, we are having a personal conversation with them, which is really, really important. But you can actually have a virtual assistant do a lot of this for you.
Yes, absolutely. If you can just taking a little bit of time to acknowledge the person that you're reaching out to and something specific about them or something that you have in common, that's a great way to get a conversation going. And you can also hire a virtual assistant and kind of teach them to do that, help them understand that, we want this to be something that's repeatable, but we also want it to sound like, very friendly and very, I don't like the word authentic, but it does fit in there.
I'm going to share with you 5 kind of tips that can help you with working with outreach specialists, a marketing virtual assistant who focuses on outreach. The first thing is you have to have a plan. So are you planning to build this on LinkedIn? Or are you planning to do this on Instagram, on Facebook? Where are your people hanging out? So having a plan is really important before you hire someone. You can definitely hire someone who's a professional person who does outreach. That's going to be more expensive than what we teach, which is hiring a virtual assistant overseas, and then you guide and instruct them. So very, very important to have a plan for what you want them to do and some goals. So if you're having someone do outreach for you, the goal may be in 90 days, I would like to make sure you're consistently booking 30 appointments for me a month. So have a very, very clear goal as to what you want your outreach specialist to do for you. The second thing, which is help write some messages. You write really good messages. You can even test some of these yourself before you hire a virtual assistant, but make sure you're writing things that are going to cause people to want to connect with you, encourage them to connect with you. And again, think about not just that first message, but the messages that will come thereafter. And that's like testing, I think. Sometimes we write a message and we think it's really great and it doesn't hit that well. So then we go back and rewrite it, or sometimes we'll try something and it goes really well. So we double down on that. So it's not like a one-time, one and done kind of thing.
Yeah. And if you're somebody who has a great sense of humor, if you can bring a little bit of humor into something, that would make a message stand out to me. So you want to think about, you can, not make everything so serious sometimes. I think people like to laugh and they like to have a good time and they like to, enjoy things. You want to consider the follow-up messages. So, as you're nurturing this relationship, you might think about some kind of content that you've created already that you could share with them. And maybe that's your opt-in. Maybe that's something that you've created that's going to provide value to them, but that you can offer to them for free. Because you want them to feel like you're giving them something before you turn around and ask them something.
Yeah, I think what's really awesome about that is if they choose to opt in, they give you their email address in order to get your free guide or whatever you offered, they kind of raise their hand to take the relationship to the next level, right? So now they're on your email list and they'll start getting those awesome emails that you send out. And you can also have a nurturing sequence, again, to really take that relationship deeper and get the like and trust that you want in order to do business with them. So that's really important too. So another tip with hiring your virtual assistant to help you with this is to make sure that they have really strong writing skills in English, okay? So in the beginning, when we first start working with an outreach specialist, we do write all the messages and we really guide that pretty strictly. But when we're interviewing and hiring, we're definitely doing a lot of emails back and forth because we want to make sure that person can write really well. And once we start to trust them, they can start replying to emails, and so they don't have to come to us right away. So normally in this conversation, if we connected with someone, we send them a second email, and then they've started a dialogue. If your virtual assistant writes really well in English, they can answer those questions and continue the conversation. You don't have to take over right away. The end goal would be to have a virtual assistant that could go all the way through getting the call booked for you so that you're not involved at all. We don't recommend that initially. You need to work with someone. So it's got to be a collaborative thing. You help them with the messages, you ask them if they can answer simple questions that they do or send second messages, but you also want to make sure that you're getting involved in the conversations, but talking to your virtual assistant about like, this is how I handle this and this is why. If you read this conversation, this is what I said and why, because eventually they can do that for you. And then you're just jumping on the calls with, your potential prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Kirsten said, we tend to hire a lot of people from the Philippines for lots and lots of different reasons. English is typically not their first language, but don't discount somebody who may not speak English well. They may be able to write English really well. So if they're just direct messaging and not, sending a video or an audio, that's absolutely fine.
Other thing, we are talking about working with someone in the Philippines, and we are on the East Coast in the United States. So they're generally 12 hours ahead of us. So you don't want them doing outreach for you in the middle of the night. So our virtual assistant who does outreach for us works her schedule, which is 8 p.m. to midnight, which is our time, 8 a.m. to noon. So that's something else you want to take into consideration. Like our virtual assistants that take care of the video editing and social media marketing for us and things like that, they can work whatever they want because they're not interacting with people. And so, we can see what they've done the next morning, give feedback and edits, and they can work on it that night. That works really well. But if you're going to have someone doing outreach, you really need to think about the schedule you want them to work. So they're talking to people during the daytime. My fourth point, which we already kind of alluded to, was you decide when you take over the conversation. It's so funny because when we start talking to people about doing hiring a virtual assistant to act as an outreach specialist, we always get this, oh no, I could never have someone representing me. I could never let someone do that for me. And I get that because when you're doing outreach, it is about the one-on-one relationship. But you get to decide when you take it over. Do you really need to be the person that sits down every day and sends the initial connect messages? Hey, I'd love to connect with you. Yes, you're a coach. I'd love to connect with you. Does that really need to be you? And I think the answer is no. But realizing you always get to decide when you take over the conversation. So you're 100% in control, and you're going to give your virtual assistant more responsibility as the trust builds and as you guys get into a groove with each other.
Yeah, and you can have some systems and processes set up so that it's really easy for you to look at, what conversations are happening, who's responded, whether that's going to your LinkedIn page, or if you have them create a document that will document, the messages they've sent and when they've sent them, or if you're doing it through Sales Navigator. And you don't have to do it through a paid program like Sales Navigator, but you want to make sure that you set this up so that you can really easily jump in and say, oh, I want to jump in on that conversation, or, oh, I like what that person had to say. I've got something to say. So, it can be something as easy as, them putting together, like I said, a spreadsheet, and then every morning or every couple of days you check it just to see, what conversations are happening or not happening. And if they're not happening, maybe you need to adjust the message.
Yeah. So like we said, for us, the ultimate goal is to get people on a call with us, because we want to find out what they do, learn more about them, and figure out if they are a good fit for us to work with. And if they are, we just share what we do. And the reason why I say a good fit for us is because not everyone is a good fit. If you know exactly what you sell and to whom you sell it, you realize that you're not going after everyone. It's not that shotgun approach. So you're trying to book a calls with people who are ideal for you, but you don't fully know that until you get on the call with them. So you want to make sure that, you're having a vetting process in that phone call. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is, if your virtual assistant is booking those appointments for you, they can do it old school, meaning they have access to your Google Calendar. Someone says, yes, they're open to a phone call. And what they do is they go back and forth with Tuesday at 10 work or Thursday at 4 work. And then they actually book the appointment and put it on your calendar. So, and some people think that's a better way to go because it's more personalized, I guess. We choose to use a booking link. And so the key to that, I think, is to say, hey, I'm so excited that you want to jump on a call. Rather than going back and forth, here's a link to my schedule so that you can book a time and a day that works best for you. So you don't want to just say, oh, great, here's my booking link. Let them know that you provided this link as a convenience to them. So I think that makes a big difference. What do you think, Jeanne?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I would even say, don't even say, here's a link to my schedule. I would just say, pick a time and date that works in your schedule here, and then give them a link. And then typically, if you have all your software on the back end set up properly, or your virtual assistant has set it up properly, once they click on that link, it will go to a booking calendar, and then they will pick the date and the time, and that's already coordinated with your calendar, your business calendar, so you don't get double booked. And then once they book it, they'll get a thank you, and then they'll get a series of follow-up, what we call a campaign, and that can be emails or texts or voicemail drops to remind them about the appointment, and then to give them the opportunity to reschedule or cancel if they need to.
Right. And I love, when we talk about automating your business, like this automation makes your life so easy, and it just gives you the freedom to know that you don't have to remind them, and that you're going to have a higher number of people that are going to show up for your call because you did remind them. You did send them the series. So automate everything you can.
So, and who knows, give them that cancellation or reschedule in every communication, because they may be ready to jump on a call with you tomorrow and oops, all of a sudden something happened. They broke their arm, or, something important with their family came up and they just can't do it tomorrow, but they want to reschedule. So, make sure you're giving them that opportunity.
That triggers another whole campaign. So if they cancel, they get another series of emails and text messages saying, hey, saw you had to cancel. Hope everything's okay. Here's a link to book again. So you're constantly trying to nurture that relationship. Same thing if they reschedule. Just because they hit that button, it doesn't mean that you're not continuing to communicate with them. And the fact that if you are, you have a much higher chance of getting them to book a call and show up for it. Because again, it is about relationships, and you can write those messages, to really explain that you understand. Hey, I know life happens. So it gives you a great opportunity to show that you show grace and show kindness, and to just show up as a person and be there for them. It's so funny because that there's bots out there, so you can actually do this with technology. And I can't weigh in whether or not they're good or bad. I guess if they work properly, they're good. If they don't, they're bad. So if you're going to use that type of technology, you've got to check up on it and make sure it's make sure your bot's well trained and not broken.
We don't want any broken bots.
So earlier we talked about having your plan and your goals. So here are 4 different kind of call to actions that you can have your virtual assistant work on for you. So first of all, booking the call. We talked about how important that is. So whether it's a discovery call or a coffee chat or a sales call, whatever works best for you, whatever you want your virtual assistant to do for you. The second call to action, like Jeannie said, was an opt-in. Hey, we created this free guide. It's called How to Double Your Income with a Marketing Virtual Assistant. I'll put a link below. If you'd like to check that out, please do. So you're offering them something of value. I think you'll find this really helpful. I don't know if you knew this, but XYZ. So give them some information around it and how it's going to help them. The other call to action that we use quite a bit is the YouTube video. Hey, we did this training. Don't know if you find it helpful, but if you want to check it out, here it is. I think it would help you because of XYZ. So those are the first 3 that we use a lot, but there's also collaboration. So your virtual assistant is obviously reaching out for connections that could be prospects, but it can also be for people on your Dream 100 list. So these are people that have the exact same audience that you do. They actually sell something to your ideal client, but something that's different than what you sell. And that's a great person to collaborate with. So you can also have your virtual assistant to reach out to try to get collaboration conversations going as well.
Yeah. So if you're, if you're a yoga instructor, maybe there's somebody else in the health and wellness space that helps people with their, with their mindset, or with, some type of nutrition. Those are people who clearly, are concerned about their health and wellness and want to get better. So, maybe the 2 of you could do a live together, or maybe you could, send an email to each of your lists and tell them, inviting them to sign up for your freebie. There's lots and lots and lots of things that you can do with somebody. And if they've already got a great relationship with their audience, then you're tapping into that, and vice versa. You're giving them exposure to your audience. And, I feel like as long as it's education based, or, something that's advantageous to them, that, it's going to be to everyone's benefit, the people on your contact list, the people on their contact list, and for both of you, your businesses individually. Tell us what you learned today. Did you know you could hire someone to do outreach for your business without feeling like you have to, or, you're not sure if they're capable? We're here to tell you that they are absolutely capable, and it's a ton of legwork, if you will, that you don't have to do, but it can bring business into your business really quickly. Instead of, sending out an email and hoping somebody's going to read it and act on it, or posting something on social again and again and again and hoping somebody's going to reach out. Direct outreach on any of the platforms is just that. It's direct. So it tends to have more quicker turnaround and pretty darn good results if you're doing it well.